Your sleep is not what you think it is. For most people, night is just the end of the day. The body gets tired, the mind slows down, and sleep becomes an escape from everything they had to carry. But when you're going through a deeper spiritual shift, sleep is not that simple. The first sign that something deeper is activating is not always what happens during the day. It is what starts happening at night, when the world goes quiet and the deeper part of you finally gets room to move. And if your nights have felt strange lately, you may not just be tired. You may be waking up spiritually before you even fall asleep. There is a reason this kind of thing often waits until night. During the day, your attention is being pulled in too many directions. You are thinking, reacting, performing. Even when you are alone, the day still has a grip on you. So the deeper shift waits. Not because it is hiding from you, but because it needs space that the daytime rarely gives. At night, the world loses its volume. People stop asking for pieces of you. The pressure to appear normal gets weaker. Even the mind, the part of you that explains everything away, starts getting tired. And when that happens, awareness can expand in places you usually keep locked. That is why the night can feel so charged during a spiritual awakening. It is not just darkness, it is not just silence. It is the one part of the day where your soul does not have to compete with the world. And this is where Kundalini, awakening, or whatever name you give it, can start making itself known. Not always through some huge event. A sense that when everyone else is shutting down, something in you is finally turning on. At night, one of the first things you may notice is that your body does not settle the way it used to. You lie down tired, but something keeps making you move. You feel like sitting up for a second, stretching for no clear reason, taking a deeper breath than usual, or changing positions again and again, like your body is trying to find the right place to land. And this does not mean every little movement is some huge, mystical sign. That is not the point. The point is that during a deeper spiritual shift, the body can start reacting before the mind understands anything. Something inside you may be changing, and your body is simply trying to get comfortable with a new inner state. That is why it can feel so strange. You are not fully restless, but you are not fully relaxed either. You are somewhere in between. The body often knows something is changing before the mind is ready to admit it. Anxiety at night usually pulls you into fear. It makes the mind run ahead, imagine problems, replay situations, or search for something to worry about. It feels like you are being dragged into a spiral. Awakening energy can feel intense too, but there is often a different quality underneath it. You may feel unsettled, but also strangely aware. Your body feels active, but your mind is not always panicking. Something feels uncomfortable, but not completely meaningless. And this is where you have to be careful. Not everything needs a spiritual label. Sometimes stress is just stress, and the body needs rest. But you can ask yourself one simple thing. Is this only fear, or is there awareness here too? That question matters because awakening can feel uncomfortable when your body is carrying more energy than your mind knows how to explain. Fear makes you feel trapped inside the night. Awakening makes you feel like something inside the night is trying to show you yourself. There are 3 small things people do at night that can quietly block them from noticing what is actually happening inside them. The first is distracting yourself until the exact second you fall asleep. Scrolling, watching, listening to anything, just so you do not have to sit with your own awareness for even 1 minute. And the problem is not the phone itself. The problem is that you never give your inner world enough silence to speak. The second is treating every unusual nighttime feeling like something to fear. The moment the body feels different, the mind turns it into danger. But not every strange feeling is a warning. Sometimes it is just awareness moving through places you normally ignore. And the third is waking up with a clear thought, a feeling, or a quiet realization, then dismissing it completely by morning. You wake up knowing something, but once the day starts, you call it random and move on. That is how people miss the message, not because nothing happened, but because they trained themselves to overlook it. Spiritual growth is not always blocked by darkness. Sometimes it is blocked by distraction. Another strange thing that happens during this kind of awakening is that you keep waking up and checking the time. And people love to jump straight into the numbers, like every hour has to mean something specific. But the deeper sign is not always the number. The deeper sign is that you are noticing the pattern. You wake up, you check the clock, and then it happens again another night. Maybe around the same time, maybe not. But something in you starts paying attention in a way it did not before. That is what matters. Awakening sharpens awareness. It makes you notice repetition, timing, small changes, and things you used to ignore. So the point is not to obsess over whether it was 222, 333, or 444. The point is that your awareness has become strong enough to catch the moment. Before, you may have woken up and gone right back to sleep without thinking. Now you notice, you remember, you question why it keeps happening, and that shift is important. Sometimes the clock is not giving you the message. It is showing you that you are finally awake enough to notice one. Another thing that can happen during a deeper spiritual shift is that some nights start feeling strangely short, but not always in a bad way. You may wake up and realize you did not sleep as long as you expected, but instead of feeling completely destroyed by it, there is this unusual sense that something still restored you. Your body may not feel perfect, but your inner state feels different, almost like the night did something for you that normal rest does not always do. And this is where most people only look at the number. They check how many hours they slept and immediately decide whether the night was good or bad. 6 hours means bad, 8 hours means good, less than that means something must be wrong. But when you are going through a period of inner change, your relationship with rest can become more complicated than that. Sometimes the quality of the night matters just as much as the length of it. This does not mean sleep stops being important, and it does not mean you should ignore your body when it needs proper rest. But spiritually, you may begin to notice that not all nights affect you the same way. Some nights feel long but empty. Other nights feel short yet strangely full. You wake up with the feeling that something inside you settled, even if you cannot explain what it was. That is what makes these nights stand out. It is not just that you slept less. It is that you wake up feeling like your awareness went somewhere deeper than usual. Maybe you feel quieter. Maybe your thoughts are not as heavy. Maybe something that was bothering you feels less powerful in the morning. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. There may be no big dream, no vision, no clear message, just a feeling that the night was not wasted. And when this starts happening more than once, you begin to realize that rest is not only physical. There are nights where the body sleeps, but the deeper self is being reorganized in silence. That is why the night may feel short on the clock, but bigger on the inside. Not every powerful night is measured by how long you slept. Some are measured by what changed while you were quiet. And now it's time for today's comment of the day. Say thank you in advance to what is already on its way. Always act with a grateful heart. This comment made me smile. Gratitude is easy when everything goes your way. The real challenge is choosing gratitude before you have proof, before the answer arrives, before the breakthrough, before life looks the way you hoped it would. There's something powerful about that kind of trust, not pretending everything is perfect, just believing that life can still surprise you in beautiful ways. And when you carry a grateful heart, you start noticing blessings that were there all along. Thank you for sharing this beautiful reminder. Then there is the strange moment where you stop needing to fill every second before bed. You sit in a dark room, and for once, you do not immediately reach for a video, a song, a message, or anything to distract you from the silence. You are not necessarily trying to meditate. You are not trying to force a spiritual experience. You are just there, in the dark, noticing that you do not feel the same urge to run away from your own awareness. And what makes this interesting is that it does not always happen because fear disappears. Sometimes you are still unsure. Sometimes the darkness still feels heavy. Sometimes your mind still wants something to grab onto. But something in you becomes curious enough to stay there anyway. That curiosity matters because it means your relationship with silence is changing. Before, silence may have felt like emptiness. It may have felt boring, uncomfortable, or too direct. The moment everything went quiet, you may have reached for noise without even thinking about it, because noise gave you a way to avoid whatever was waiting underneath. But during a spiritual awakening, there can come a point where you no longer want to escape yourself so quickly. That is when darkness starts feeling different, not because the room changed, but because you changed. The same silence that used to feel empty now feels like it has depth. You start noticing your breath, your thoughts, your body, your inner state. You start realizing how much of your day is spent reacting to things outside of you, and how rare it is to simply sit without being pulled. This is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming willing to observe. That is a very different thing. Fearlessness can become a performance, but observation is honest. You are not pretending to be above anything. You are just giving yourself enough stillness to see what is actually there. And that is why this desire to sit in darkness can be so meaningful. One of the most underrated signs of a deeper awakening is that your nights begin changing before your life does. People expect spiritual change to show up as some massive decision, like quitting everything, becoming a completely different person overnight, or suddenly understanding the whole purpose of their life. But most of the time, that is not how it begins. It begins much smaller than that. It begins with the things you no longer feel like doing before bed. You may notice that the same distractions do not pull you in the same way. Maybe you still pick up your phone, but something in you gets tired of scrolling faster than before. Maybe you used to fall asleep with noise playing every night, but now there are moments where you actually want quiet. Maybe you start writing something down without knowing why, or you pause before sleeping because some part of you wants to review the day, not in a stressful way, but in a way that feels more honest. And this is important because awakening does not always change your life from the outside first. Sometimes it changes your smallest private habits, the ones nobody sees, the ones you do when there is no audience and no pressure to look spiritual. That is where the real shift is easier to notice because nobody is rewarding you for it. You are not doing it to impress anyone. You're just naturally losing interest in the things that keep you disconnected from yourself. This is why your evening routine may start changing without you forcing it. You may feel less drawn to chaos before bed. You may become more selective with what you watch, what you listen to, who you reply to, or what kind of energy you allow near your mind before sleep. And at first, it may look like nothing, just a small choice, just turning something off a little earlier, just sitting for a few minutes, just not answering a message right away. But repeated small choices are how the deeper self begins, taking your attention back. Most people miss this because they are waiting for the huge sign. They want the lightning strike, the vision, the dramatic confirmation. Meanwhile, the real proof is already happening in the background of their ordinary life. Their taste is changing, their tolerance is changing, their need for noise is changing. Their relationship with the last hour of the day is changing, and that matters because the last hour of your day is not random. It is the hour where you are most honest about what you are feeding yourself mentally and spiritually. During the day, you can blame responsibilities, people, work, pressure, and timing. But at night, when the world gets quiet, the question becomes much more direct. What do you keep choosing when nobody is making you choose it? That is why these small nighttime changes are powerful. They show that your inner world is no longer waiting for permission to become different. It is already adjusting your life through tiny movements, tiny refusals, tiny moments where you no longer want to numb yourself the way you used to. The biggest spiritual changes do not always begin with a new life. Sometimes they begin with the moment you stop feeding the old one before sleep. The night reveals what your attention has been serving all day. That is the test most people fail, not because they are weak, but because they do not realize they are taking the same pattern into sleep every single night and strengthening it without noticing. If the last thing you feed your mind is worry, comparison, fear, noise, or endless stimulation, then the body may go to bed, but your attention is still carrying the same direction. This is why some people wake up feeling like they never truly left the day. They slept, but they did not disconnect from the pressure. They closed their eyes, but the mind was still full of everything they kept giving power to. And then they wonder why the night feels heavy, why their dreams feel crowded, why they wake up already tense, why the first thought in the morning feels like a continuation of the same mental loop from the night before. The mistake is thinking this is about being positive all the time. It is not. This is not about pretending everything is beautiful before bed or forcing yourself to think happy thoughts when something is clearly bothering you. That becomes fake very quickly, and your body knows when you are lying to yourself. The real issue is attention. Where does your attention go when the world gets quiet? Does it immediately run toward fear? Does it start measuring your life against someone else's? Does it replay what hurt you? Does it search for one more distraction because silence feels too direct? That is the night test. It is not whether you can be perfectly calm. It is whether you can notice where your attention is going before it pulls you completely. Because the moment you notice it, even for a few seconds, something changes. You are no longer fully trapped inside the reaction. You are watching it, and watching is the beginning of freedom. This is where the shift starts becoming real. Not when you suddenly become peaceful forever, but when you catch yourself before the old pattern takes over the whole night. You may still feel worried. You may still feel restless. You may still feel the pull to distract yourself. But instead of instantly obeying it, you pause. You observe. You ask yourself, what is actually happening inside you? Not to fix everything in one night, but to stop feeding the pattern blindly. And this is powerful because whatever you feed at night tends to grow roots. If every evening ends with comparison, comparison becomes familiar. If every evening ends with fear, fear becomes familiar. If every evening ends with overstimulation, silence starts feeling unbearable. But if you spend even a few minutes observing instead of reacting, even a few minutes letting your awareness return to itself, the direction slowly begins to change. And if you're still here at the end of this video, seriously thank you, because that already tells me something about you. It tells me you did not just click this because of curiosity. Some part of you stayed because it recognized something. So if your nights have been feeling different lately, do not rush to fear it, and do not rush to label it either. Just pay attention. Sometimes the deepest changes begin quietly, when nobody is watching, when nothing looks different from the outside, but something inside you knows life is not going to feel the same forever. Keep trusting what you're noticing, keep staying grounded, keep moving carefully, but do not ignore the part of you that is waking up. Something good is coming from this. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in the way you expected, but your inner world is trying to lead you somewhere real. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.